Mark, you're up, sir. Once Mark gets to the podium, we'll go ahead and take questions about the men's hockey program.
Nice shoes.
I appreciate that. Lakers too, Mark.
Yeah, shopped at the same store.
Exactly.
Discount store. So,
Mark, can you take us through your decision on why moving on from Bob and what the decision there?
Yeah, well, obviously, first off, I want to thank Bob, Shelley, and his family for what they've done for Gopher hockey. If you go back, we had 7 incredible years. I mean, 2 Frozen Four, competed for the national championship game down in Tampa. He was Big Ten Coach of the Year 3 times. And Randy, as we were going through the season, I'm probably closer to Bob than I am most of our coaches. He and I spent a lot of time together. And as we were going through the season, obviously it wasn't the season we wanted to have this year in terms of the wins and how we were competing. And as he and I talked during the season, we probably met a month ago, and we talked about, hey, what does it look like a year from now? What do we need to do to compete at that national level? And as the season came to a conclusion when we lost out at Penn State, we had a chance to get together last Monday, and we kept talking about, what is the best long-term decision for Gopher hockey? And we had an open and honest conversation, and as that conversation went on and we talked about it for a day or two, I think we both realized that the best long-term decision, and Bob talked about, was for him to step down and step away from our program and for us to go in a new direction. So that's what we did. So again, really grateful for Bob and what he's done for our program, the excitement he's created, but we're really excited about the opportunity we have for a new coach.
What are the kind of challenges you two talked about during that meeting? It's been kind of a tumultuous year. What needs to be invested in the program?
Yeah, well, Eric, that's a great question, and you can kind of answer it on many different levels. I think the first level is we have seen more changes in college athletics in the last 4 or 5 years than you've seen for the last 50 years. What is going on, and it impacts hockey, and then the change with Canadian, junior, and now them being able to play, and you look at some of our peers and what they've done with the new rule change on that side of it, and now you talk about the rev share dollars that you have internally and externally and trying to manage that. So college athletics, and I would argue college hockey has changed dramatically during that period. And when Bob and I sat down and we evaluated everything, I remember when we hired Bob 8 years ago, Bob talked about how, as a kid, he kept clippings of Gopher hockey, from the paper, right, that he still has. I remember he told me a story that he bought when he was a head coach at another institution, he bought a famous Gopher picture. He didn't want anybody to know about it, like at an auction, so he was hiding it in his trunk so nobody would see it. He loves Gopher hockey. And again, when we had those conversations, we talked about what is the best long-term decision for Gopher hockey in terms of how we take this forward in this new landscape. And again, that's where we both agreed that probably changes the best for us.
On this new landscape, does the new head coach have to sort of entrench himself into that? Or will you have to hire somebody sort of to be for lack of a better term, general manager or somebody to navigate that?
Yeah, you see programs kind of do it both ways, and I'm going to give you a long answer, so bear with me here on that answer. So, when we have head coaches meeting or all coaches meetings, or when we interview coaches, I talk about there's 4 or 5 things we look at right off the top. The first thing is compliance. You've heard me talk about this all the time. At Minnesota, you got to do it the right way. The second thing we talk about is student-athlete experience. Are student-athletes having a good experience? Are they enjoying their time at Minnesota? And when we brought you in as a coach, are they going to enjoy their time, that type of stuff? We talk about the academics. Obviously, we've got to compete in the classroom and do things the right way academically. We talk about the vibe around the program, the excitement, the fundraising, all those type of things. And then the last thing we talk about is winning. And at this level in the Big Ten, you got to compete at the highest level. And so when you ask about, do you look at a GM and how we do things, we've tried to be very proactive. I've been very, very honest with all of you, and I've tried to be very honest with our coaches, our student athletes. We share revenue with 5 sports programs. We've added scholarships for a lot of our programs that count against the cap, right? But we share revenue with 5 programs. And we've had those coaches from football, PJ, Dawn basketball, Nico men's basketball, Keegan volleyball, and Bob was a part of those conversations where we got those coaches together to talk about lessons learned, what works, what doesn't work, what metrics are we using to evaluate players and those type of things. And some of our programs have a GM type, if you will, where again, I'm not sure exactly what that title means. We did when this all changed a year ago. We talked to the Wild. Bill was great at the Wild. We talked to the Vikings. We talked to the Timberwolves. We talked to different organizations, the Twins, how that all is set up and so forth. But I think when we hire a new coach, it's almost that CEO mentality, right? Where obviously I'm a big believer that you want your coaches to coach. That's what they're really, really good at. And how can we put a support system around them to help them with managing the rev share dollars, the external NIL, and those type of things. So my point is, with those 5 sports that we share revenue with, those coaches meet together. Dusty Clements is here, Jeremiah Carter, Kevin Gomer, Mike Wiersbicky, Jenny Yalen, Joy Thomas, Tricia. We have a group that gets together, and so we try to create safety nets for our coaches as we all try to navigate this new world. Because again, you can ask that question to 100 different coaches and athletic directors, you'll get 100 different answers. But we're just trying to create safety nets. But to answer your question, our goal is we need to find somebody who can manage this program. And trust me, we understand what Gopher hockey means to the state. It is a big, big deal. We pay attention to it, but we need somebody that can manage this program on and off the ice in the new landscape of college athletics.
Mark,
I hope that answers your
Yeah.
question. But
I'm wondering what that, this is going along with Mike saying, if you're looking, I mean, you got to spend a lot of money on these 5 programs. And I'm wondering if you look at your portfolio, so to speak, your 22, if you're like, which ones of these can start making a little bit of money? Which can make more money? Which can bring more in? And I would think that hockey, both hockey programs are on the top of that. Is there anything to that?
yeah, it's nice to see you again, John. Yeah, so we have 3 sports that generate revenue in Minnesota. Our football, men's basketball, men's hockey. Those 3 programs generate revenue that support all of our other programs. And so obviously that's why this hire is such an important hire, because this is a revenue generator for us. I give Bob a ton of credit. If you remember when he took over as head coach 8 years ago, what the crowds looked like and what the crowds look like today. We're so grateful for our fans for supporting, coming back to support our programs. So that's a big part of it. But those 3 programs generate revenue for all of our programs. And obviously, I say this all the time, and I know you all get tired of, money's not the most important thing in college athletics, but it's right up there with oxygen. We need to generate revenue, especially in this new era of rev share and external NIL. So we're paying attention. But those are the 3 programs that generate revenue.
I mean, I don't know if women's can generate revenue, but they certainly could make more. Is there a feeling that, like, if you bring a title here? Or...
Yeah, 100%. I mean, 100% that, obviously, if you just look at this past weekend, what happened with our women's basketball program and what the barn looked like, the revenue generated from that. So obviously, if you have success, you compete at a high level, people come back, they want to support that. And again, that revenue is such a critical piece for all 22 of our programs.
So Mark, it sounds like you've been,
I'm sorry, Maxie, go ahead.
So you got, I mean, I picture these coaches lobbying, and all of a sudden they've got some high-end recruit that shows up out of nowhere, and they say, Mark, we've already spent our budget, but for $750,000, we can get a first-round pick. And the other coaches are saying, well, we need that. Who's the arbitrator? How does that work?
You have my office bug, don't you, Maxie? Because that's every conversation. I mean, literally, again, I have tried so hard to be honest and upfront with our coaches. And Maxie, it gets confusing. So when we share that revenue, that $20.5 million, when I talk about sharing with 5 sports, that's revenue going out to the student athletes in terms of payments to the student athletes. When you add scholarships, that also counts towards the cap this first year of rev share. And so we've added scholarships that count towards that cap too. So we are sharing revenue, for example, through scholarships with women's hockey, with volleyball, with soccer, with volleyball. Some of those programs we've added some rev share. But you're exactly right. We have coaches every day because they're competitive. And whether it's PJ, Dawn, Nico, Bob, whoever it may be, they're coming to our office saying, hey, we can get this top recruit. And so it goes back to your question. That's why, we have this internal NIL group led by Jeremiah Carter. Travis Cameron's a big part of that, where we try to do the metrics. And so when we look at a student athlete or a potential recruit, we're trying to have the metrics behind it. So we say, hey, we've got to sign Mike Max because this is the best kid in the country and we need to pay him $750,000. As the athletic director, I want to make sure I understand why is that kid worth $750,000. So ultimately, it comes to me working closely with our coaches. But again, we feel like we've done a really good analysis. We put in really good metrics to have safety nets to help all of our programs manage this new era of college athletics.
it sounds like the last couple of days you've been really busy between both men's and women's. Can you discuss how many candidates you've talked to for the men's program? And it really does feel like you usually try to act quick, that this is going to be a quick wrap up here.
Yeah, well, a couple things. I mean, if you remember, I'm doing the men's search no different than I did when we hired Dawn Plitzowite 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing it no different than we hired Nico Medved last year, right? we can get a lot of work done while I'm traveling, while I'm working, those type of things. And you know, when I had a chance to do a Zoom with the men's team, I had to travel to St. Louis. My days are messed up on Wednesday afternoon. I think I went to St. Louis when we made the announcement. And when I was down in St. Louis, you know, I had a chance to Zoom with the men's team because I was actually in the air when the announcements were coming out and so forth. But when I met with them, I have a great sense of empathy for those student athletes because I am creating anxiety for them, right? There's change with their program. And so we always do try to act very quickly when we go through these coaching searches. We want to be very thorough. I can tell you that we have talked to numerous people across the country. I am so grateful for the people who have taken time to take my phone call, to pick their brains, get their advice, to get their counsel. But we feel like we have a very, very good pool of candidates that we're talking to, that we're still vetting, that we're working our way through. But again, we're optimistic. We have a very desirable job. We have people who want to be here, and it's on us to find the right person that can lead this program in this new age of Gopher hockey. Kind of back to your question in terms of not only managing the program on the ice, but off the ice in terms of the rev share, NIL, and all the new factors that we're doing. The transfer portal, you know, again, that transfer portal opens up after the Frozen Four, I think on April 13th, Monday the 13th, because the championship game is on Saturday night. So again, these are all things we're trying to balance. But we have a good group of people, and I promise you, I've been talking to a lot of people, and we've got a really good search committee that has talked with people. And again, we'll move as quickly as we possible. But ultimately, again, we're doing the same thing we did when we hired Nico, the same thing we did when we hired Dawn. We're going to find a really, really good coach that can help this program move forward in this new era of college athletics.
Mark, do you feel you have to wait for the NCAA tournament to play out to talk to your candidates?
Randy, we've been talking to him. Yeah, you know, you know, it's amazing. You know, you didn't see me Saturday, right? You saw me Friday at games, and you saw me yesterday for a little bit at games, but there's a lot of time between it. And like I said, Randy, this is the same way we did when we hired Nico and we hired Dawn. You see the excitement around Nico right now in that program than what Dawn's done in year 3 here. So again, we feel like we have a good process in place, a thorough process. You know, I talk about we want to move quickly, but you want to be effective, right? You want to make sure we identify the right person that can lead this program. And again, we feel like we're making really good progress.
Mark, the conversations that you've had with Bob over the last few months, given all the changes in college hockey, did you get any sense that he was maybe burned out or worn out by all this, and that maybe he wasn't quite up to doing this anymore?
Not at all. Not at all. Bob, you know Bob. I mean, he is such a good person. And again, I am probably closer to him than I am most of our coaches. And again, Bob and I have had really good, open, and honest conversations. And you know, it's one of those conversations where you have it, you both learn more about each other and you learn more about yourself, if that makes any sense at all. And not for a second do I feel like Bob, you know, wasn't up to the task or any of that type of thing. I just think he felt, you know, when we look at Gopher hockey and you know, we're not talking about the next best decision for the next 12 months. We're talking about the next best decision for the next several years for Gopher hockey. And I think when we started to have that conversation, I give Bob a lot of credit because we both came to the same landing point. So, but to answer your question, no, I did not see that.
Mark, where did you see things slip this season for the men's team? And you were real candid about what you were looking for in a coach for the women's team. What are you looking for in a coach for the men's team?
Well, again, I'm a big believer you're a product of your past, if that makes any sense at all. And I remember when Chris Pierce was a football coach at Boise State, I had the best AD job in America. Chris Pierce was a football coach, their top 10. Life was great. When Coach Peterson left and I had to hire a football coach, the first time I had to hire a coach on my own at Boise State when I was the athletic director back there, you know, I remember telling myself, I have to find somebody whose knees aren't going to buckle, because these aren't easy jobs. And Gopher hockey, I mean, it is a job, right? There's a lot that comes with this job. So, you know, our goal is when we start this process, when we start to have conversations with people, is we need to make sure, and the people we've talked with, the people we will talk to, they understand what this program means. They clearly understand what this program means in the state of Minnesota, but nationally, what it means, you know, with the hockey world and that side of it. So, again, we'll just continue to be very methodical in our process, but we do have that time sensitivity to move quickly, efficiently, to get the best person to lead the program. But my number one thing is we need to find somebody, like, when they get here, they can step in, they understand the expectations. In terms of what we did this year on the ice, Bob would be the first to tell you. I mean, again, when Bob and I were talking last week, his birthday's coming up later in the week, he said, this is the first time I've ever played on my birthday, right? Bob didn't like it.
Yeah.
Nobody liked what happened this year. And so, again, we need to find someone that can get this program back to where we want it to be.
How do you evaluate that in a candidate? What do you ask them? What do you ask people around them in their circles who worked with them? How do you find that guy?
Yeah, well, Eric, I've been really blessed. I've had a chance to work all over the country, and I've had a chance to develop a lot of really cool relationships with people. And I'm not doing a self-promotion for our staff. I am blessed every day to work with unbelievable people in our department. I am so fortunate, and Peyton Owens, Tricia Butke, Paul Romack, Michelle. I mean, I can name Dusty. I can name the people who I have a chance to talk to every day, and it is amazing to me. I think you and I were talking late last night as I was driving back from St. Louis, and he pops a couple names my way, right? And then and you start doing that stuff. But again, I feel like our connections, what Gopher hockey means to people. Obviously, people are reaching out to us, which is always nice when people are calling you. And when you start to have those conversations, it leads to other conversations. And I think good, bad, or indifferent, I'm shy. Is that fair? I'm kind of a quiet person. I try to be below the radar screen.
Low ego, high output.
Yep. Yeah, it drives a lot of you nuts, and I apologize, but I try to be underneath the radar screen. People trust me. And again, the calls that I'm getting from people who trust me, who I trust, that helps us find different people on that side too. So again, we're casting a wide net, but again, it's just the relationships we've had over the years.
And college on both sides, as college hockey is, there are more teams. Has there been any talk about expanding the NCAA field again for either of those?
For
women or the men?
men's and women's
Either
hockey?
or, yeah.
I am not aware of any of those
Okay.
conversations. Obviously, I don't want to make Paul nervous. I would be all for expanding the Big Ten Conference. Our scheduling is kind of clunky on that side of it, but I'm not aware of any conversations to expand the men's or women's hockey.
So do you feel like the future of the men kind of goes through the Big Ten, winning the Big Ten? It seems weird to say that, but.
Well, I think, John, I mean, if I remember when I got here 10 years ago, to be honest with you, my biggest shock was the arena and how many open seats we had, right? And everybody talked, well, the old WCHA and those days are gone. Well, it's amazing in my 10 years here how the Big Ten has just continued to grow and grow in hockey. And I mean, Eric, I see you every time I come, right? I mean, just what Big Ten hockey is now. I think when the final or the Frozen Four was in XL a few years ago, we had 3 Big Ten teams there. So obviously, you need to compete in the Big Ten at a high level. Selfishly, we feel like it's an incredibly competitive conference, and if we compete there, that'll give us a good shot to be in the NCAA tournament and compete for those national championships and Frozen Four appearances.
Do 1 or 2 more for Mark?
Mark, I think about PJ, Don, Nico. They all had previous head coaching experience. How important will that be this time?
I think it helps. It's I would feel. We just hired Boom, who has a couple of years of head coach experience. I think that definitely helps if you have that experience because you've been through it before. I knew Will back from my time at Boise, so back in the Boise State. I mean, I'm a lot different AD than I was when I knew you back then than when I know you now. Fair, like, 'cause you've been through it, you kind of got all those things. So obviously, somebody who has head coaching experience, that's positive, that helps. But that's not a no starter or anything like that. I think we learned good lessons. Like if again, PJ, what he did at Western, Nico, Dawn, Keegan, Aaron Chastain with soccer, those are all really good things. So I think being a head coach helps, but it's not a prerequisite. I'm like Michigan State. They hired their new coach in hockey a few years ago. Was an assistant coach. And thank you. And they're doing pretty good right now. So
Do you how much pressure do you get from the alum to hire an alum? And is it necessary? I guess at a school like this.
yeah, the alum has been awesome. I cannot tell you. I've had a chance to talk to a lot of them from many different generations and classes. They have all been so supportive. Again, I'm really, really grateful for them. They take time to take my calls. If they shoot me a text or reach out to me, I follow up them right away. I don't feel that pressure because, again, they've been so positive with us. They've been, again, open-minded. They want what's best for Gopher hockey. They all talk about getting back and getting to the Frozen Four, winning a championship. And, they talk about how close we were in Tampa a few years ago. And again, our alums have been nothing but supportive. And I'm really, really grateful for the conversations I've had with them. I'm grateful, for their guidance and counsel because this is a big task. I mean, you're making a major hire, just like we hired Boom on the women's side. You're making a major hire. People care about it. People pay attention. So we do feel a lot of pressure, but the alums have been absolutely awesome. And again, just really grateful for their guidance and counsel.
we have a final question for Mark?
Yeah, kind of on that same note, with students paying the athletic fee to go into, the $100 athletic fee per semester, how do those student voices go into a decision like this?
I'm not trying, you mean the students from the student athletes on the team?
The students like at the university themselves.
Yeah, well, obviously, every time you go through any type of coaching transition, you want to get as much input as you can. I'm not aware if I've heard from any students. I've gotten a lot of emails, and I don't necessarily know where they all come from. But again, we try to welcome voices from different areas, just again because it gives us insight, it gives us guidance, and counsels. We ultimately make a decision. And again, with our student fee, as you know, that our students, we talk about every student on this campus comes into an athletic facility either through graduation, orientation when they get to school, or classes, those type of things. So again, like most of our peers, we have that student fee that goes along with it. But again, if students reach out, we listen to them, we take into account their voice, and again, want to make the best long-term decision for Gopher Athletics and our hockey program.
Mark, would you expect the decision within hours or days?
I wish I could tell you that, Randy. And if I'm misleading you, my lip quivers. I wish I could tell you. I mean, again, our goal is we want to get as much information as we can. Again, I'm just so grateful for our search committee who are working very closely with me. And again, we will continue to try to narrow it down to find the right person to lead this hockey program as quickly as we can. But again, I don't know an exact time.
How many people are on that committee?
We have I want to say 6. I'm looking at Dusty, who's our executive. I think we have 6 on that, maybe 7.
Yeah. I like how you're smart enough not to say it out loud there.
Yeah, well, I wanted to count. Yeah, but I don't want to mislead you.
Yeah.
I'm like a daily mascot. I want to make sure I do the right thing. But I think we have 6, maybe 7 people.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Mark.